268 as amended by the Senate, and we will agree to substitute as amended by the Senate. I think everyone has that now, so I'm going to recognize Representative Persinger for a motion. Representative Persinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to HB 268.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 268 by Representative Persinger of the 119th to be entitled Act to Amend Chapter 2, Title 20, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education so as to provide for the safety, health, and well-being of students and school communities.
Representative Persinger is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the hour's late, so I'll be brief and just go over the changes that were made. The Senate substitute incorporates SB 17, known as Ricky and Alyssa's Law, in its entirety that will require all public schools to implement a mobile panic alert system, much like the one used at Appalachia that we know saved countless lives and prevented a much larger tragedy. This will also require each school to procure digital mapping data to be shared with the state and local agencies that respond to emergencies at school systems. The amended 268 also requires GEMA and Homeland Security to establish a statewide alert system to report and monitor incidents of safety threats made against schools. It will also require schools to adopt threat assessment plans, providing a structured, multidisciplinary process to identify, assess, and mitigate potential threats to schools, while supporting the safety and well-being of students and school personnel. Bill also creates a qualified student advocacy specialist position who's required to coordinate mental health services for students in crisis, and it also creates the grants to fund those positions. Colleagues, after what we witnessed at Appalachia, this House committed to championing legislation to bolster school security, mandate stronger communications between our schools, and provide critical mental health resources to our students. That's exactly what House Bill 268 will accomplish, and I ask for your favorable consideration of this bill.
Gentleman has a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
If he'll yield.
Yes, sir.
Representative Roberts to your left is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
I'm all for all of these security measures. I just am curious on the, was it Alyssa's Law, the mapping that
Correct.
is required to be implemented by, I think it was July of 2026. Is there funding in the budget for that, or the school systems? I have no idea what they cost. I just wonder if we're imposing an unfunded mandate on the schools with quick turnaround time.
I think most of the mapping is already required in the school safety plans we did, I believe, in 23.
Okay.
So it's just an addition to.
Okay. Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
I do.
Representative Bennett to your left is recognized for a question.
Thank you. Would the gentleman yield?
I do.
You mentioned a mental health personnel. Is that per each school or for the school district? I couldn't find it in the bill.
So it was originally in our bill as a behavioral health coordinator, and that's going to be allocated based on population. I believe it's 18,000, up to 18,000 get one that we would fund through grants. 18,000 to 36,000 would have two, and over 36,000 students would get up to three that would be funded by the grants that we put in the budget. If they want to have more, they could have more. They just have to fund them themselves.
Per district.
Correct.
Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Barnes to your left is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I will.
As far as the school safety devices, are they to be placed per classroom, like the alert system?
That is the alert system that we use here at the Capitol. Same thing as the alert badges.
So are we trying to place those in each classroom? That's what I'm asking.
Wait, which alert system you speak? You talking about Alyssa's Law or the one that GEMA is responsible for?
I guess the GMA's law that we're going to implement and put in each classroom, are we putting these alert systems in each classroom or just in the school?
No, that's information sharing to make sure that if there is a credible threat to a school system, that all agencies are involved in that communication. That was part of the lacking at Appalachia.
So the other system that you were explaining is an actual device?
Correct. The device in Alyssa's law is the panic alert badges like we have here.
Okay, and they will go to each teacher or something like that, or student?
Correct. Most systems are using that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have about 80%, maybe a little less than that, compliance.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Gentleman, yield for another question.
One more.
Representative Buckner to your left is recognized for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I will.
There was a great deal of conversation after what happened in Winder and Appalachia School, and one of the things that they were talking about is that the student had only been there very briefly, and that the records from the previous school that may have given an indication of a potential problem had not arrived. So
Correct.
when it talks about procedures to meet the requirements in students' education records in a timely manner, is timely mannered identified?
Within 5 days.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Gentleman, yield, or one more question? Is he?
One more.
Representative Sanchez is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I will.
So the G3 database was removed from this bill that we passed from the House, or?
The S3 database is removed, correct?
Okay, further yield?
Yes.
But the bill still includes disciplinary records following students if they have a disciplinary record from school to school, correct?
Correct. That's currently in a student's record now and follows a student now, just not, there's not anything codified as to the time frame. So we're codifying that a student's record, which currently exists, must be transferred within 5 days.
Right, thank you.
Speaker, I yield the will.
The gentleman has answered questions, presented the bill, and yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 268. All those in favor will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machines? On the gentleman's motion, the yeas are 154, the nays are 12, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 268, the school safety bill. Congratulations, Representative Perslinger. Thank you, members. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 199?
Senate Bill 199 by Senator Watson of the 11th, being entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to government transparency and campaign finance, so as to provide that the State Ethics Commission shall not accept or reject complaints made against candidates 60 days prior to an election. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends this bill do pass.
Representative Chaz Cannon is recognized to present the bill. Representative Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I have for you Senate Bill 199, which provides some much-needed uniformity in terms of our campaign finance disclosures. It also streamlines and simplifies some of our reporting requirements. I want to thank Mr. David Amati, who was in the gallery with us right now, our State Ethics Commissioner, Commission Executive Director, for his input on this legislation. This is a clean bill, no amendments. It passed the Senate without a single no vote. I think you'll like it as well. Let me tell you about some of the key provisions. Local filings now done with city and county. Election clerks will now be reverted back to the state starting January 1st, 2027. It makes the deadline 60 days prior to an election to submit complaints against a candidate for election, currently at 30. Changes campaign disclosure reports to quarterly every year and provides uniformity in both election years and non-election years. And those dates will be standard across the board. January 31st, April 30th, July 31st, and October 20th. It also changes reporting for PACs, political action committees, to those dates as well, so uniformity across reporting dates. It also requires PACs to have separate bank accounts, much like campaigns. It moves financial disclosures reports to be due on April 1st every year instead of different days in a non-election year. Again, clarifying the situation, making it more simple. It also requires our friends outside on the ropes to make their reports once a month, no later than the 5th day of the month, and also simplifies lobbyist registrations. One of the last things we'll talk about is also restricts elected officials and candidates for office home address from public view. So it does a good bit of things, makes things more uniform, standard across the board. Mr. Speaker, I'll stand for any questions.
You have a couple of questions. Representative Stacey Evans to your left is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
I think there's definitely more good in this bill than bad, but I did have a question I wanted to ask you about on lines 572, I guess really starting on 571, where we are talking about financial statements. Say amen when you have it. Nobody got my joke. What? Yeah, no. I just want. Are you there? I didn't want to start.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Greater than 1,000, but not more than 2,500.
Well, that's that whole section, starting on line 571 through 581, where we're having, this part of the bill, it appears to me, sets out the requirements for, and it may just be the statewide candidates for their financial statements. My question is, we've got a lot of compression at the beginning when you're setting out, when candidates are setting out their income or what they might hold in something, not more than 1,000. Then we've got between 1,000 and 2,500, 2,500 and 5,000, 5,000 and 15,000. Really tiny, relatively tiny ranges. But then we are like 500,000 to $1 million, $1 million to $5 million, then greater than $5 million. So I'm having a hard time understanding why there's more interest in knowing whether a candidate owns between 1,000 and 15,000, but not knowing whether it was 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, 200 million, 500 million. We're just letting that go as high as the sky can go. And I was wondering if that was discussed and what perhaps was the logic there.
I can't speak to that exactly. I just know that it was creating ranges for personal financial disclosure statements on a source of income instead of exact amounts. That's all I can give you in terms of the reasoning behind that.
Perhaps that's something that could be looked at, because I think from a transparency standpoint, there's not a lot to be gained between the range of, to me, 1,000 to 15,000, maybe even 50. But there's a lot to know between 5 million and 500 million, and we're leaving that to chance. Would you yield for one more?
I will.
I understand the logic of not having the Ethics Commission accept or decline a complaint during the 60 days before an election. I actually thought that was the law already. But what happens to those? Because there very well may be some wrongdoing that needs to be brought to someone's attention. And will those just sit? Or do they have to be filed again after the election's over?
I will find out. But the intent with that is not to have a surprise, somebody lodge a complaint against you that close to an election timeline. I think it backs that timeline up so you can have more time between those dates and the election. But I will find out and get back to you.
could you tell me though? Well, not the logic in that. I'm wondering what happens to the complaints. The commission's not going to accept them or reject them.
I see the motioning from the executive director saying it's going to go back to after the election.
So you would have to refile it after the election.
That's correct.
No, you don't. You don't have to refile.
You don't have to file it, but you could.
They roll over. So they're still heard, but after the election.
Understood. And I guess if you would yield a little bit further, have a little discussion here.
One more question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand, and it's great logic not to give a campaign fodder to say a complaint's been filed or the Ethics Commission is considering this complaint, and that goes on a mailer within 60 days of the campaign. But are we actually taking that away? Because if they file it and it's not accepted or rejected, it seems like it would still be accurate for the complaining candidate within those 60 days to say ethics complaint has been filed against XYZ. Would that be accurate if the candidate said that?
I'm not sure I can speak to that. I think we're just trying to basically make some uniformity and some simplicity to the timeline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May not comply with state law, but I bet you it'll be said by somebody. Representative Burchett. Whip Burchett is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield to the whip.
Did I understand you to say that this is going to simplify our filing so that even in election years and non-election years, we're filing quarterly? Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we don't have this 3 days provision like we've got right
It
now?
alternates between 7 and 15 days on non-election years. It makes it standard April 1st, I believe.
Thank you.
You want another question?
Mr. Speaker, in the voice of Deputy Whip, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well.
Gentleman's yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine? On the passage of Senate Bill 199, the yeas are 167, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Members, in your folder, your agree-disagree folder, we have Senate substitute to House Bill 288. So that's what we're going to take up next. Representative Gaines is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 288.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 288 to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 6 of Title 5, Chapter 4 of Title 9, Article 1 of Chapter 18 and Title 15, and Chapter 16 to Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to appellate practice.
Representative Houston Gaines is recognized to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 288, in terms of the 288 did not change in the Senate. It was combined with House Bill 246, which was a bill that passed unanimously out of House Committee here in the chamber. These are both pro-law enforcement bills that will help. 288 is to ensure that if a district attorney accuses a law enforcement officer of credibility issues, they have the opportunity to clear their name. And this morning, the Senate passed this bill unanimously. Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer a question if there is one.
To your right, Representative Jason Ridley is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does my friend yield?
I think so.
On the end of line 218 and 219, could you explain to me what a gigolo list is and why I'm not on it?
It's a Giglio list.
Oh, Giglio, okay. Thank you.
There's
Just want to clear that up.
A big difference between, I hope you're not on that other list, but Mr. Speaker, on that one, I'll yield the will.
Sometimes I'm sorry I recognize people for questions. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 288, all those in favor will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, Ms. Clerk, will you lock the machines? On the gentleman's motion, the yeas are 152, the nays are 14. This House agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 288. Back on the rules calendar, Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption of Senate Bill 201?
Senate Bill 201 by Senator Walker, the 20th, and others to be titled an act to amend Code Section 10-1-393 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to unfair, deceptive practices in consumer transactions, unlawful examples. This bill having referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The lady from Lyons, Representative Hagan, is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friends, typically after a natural disaster, we tend to see the best in people, but sadly on some occasions, we do see the worst in people. Most recently, after Hurricane Helene, we saw scammers in the form of storm-chasing repair contractors who suddenly appear to make home repairs. These, and I'm sure you've seen them in other instances of natural disasters around the state. They show up and claim to be ready to make repairs. However, they often are preying on our senior citizens and potentially others of us who are not particularly well versed in contractual language. So many people who are in a time of intense stress because of the natural disaster sign contracts for home repairs more quickly than they would have otherwise, without fully understanding what they're signing. So this bill would do two things to address this. First, it amends the Georgia Fair Business Practices Act to provide greater protection for homeowners in the 12 months following a natural disaster to make sure that contracted work is performed in a timely and professional manner. And the second thing that this bill does is prohibit the assignment of insurance proceeds to contractors for a period of 1 year following the natural disaster. So what it does is it gives homeowners who are in a time of intense stress the ability to cancel their contract if the contractor does not perform as they should. It only applies within the 12 months after a natural disaster in a county that was included in a state of emergency proclamation by the governor. And right now, this includes every county in the state because we have had these natural disaster state of emergency proclamations statewide for winter storms, hurricanes within the past 12 months. So although it was a concern immediately following the hurricane and this bill did come out of those concerns, it is written in such a way that it would apply to any county who has within the last 12 months been declared a state of emergency due to a natural disaster. Mr. Speaker, that is the bill, and I'd be happy to take some questions if there are any.
Lady has no questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? Hearing none, the committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? For what purpose does Chairman Deloach rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State that inquiry.
Since our friend from Toombs mentioned that this bill was particularly beneficial to old people, should I ask to be excused from this vote?
You would be if you were old, but you're not old. But the next guy that mashes button, Chairman Hitchens, may fit that bill, but you don't. So I think you're clear to vote. Have all members now voted? Young as you feel, right, Mr. Chairman? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 201. The yeas are 163, the nays 1. The bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 130?
Senate Bill 130 by Senator Hodges III to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to health so as to expand medical education funding and the Service Cancelable Loan Program. This bill having referred to the Committee on Health, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Representative Townsend is recognized to present the bill. Representative Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 130 increases health care providers. That's the goal. Increases the number of institutions offering residency and fellowship programs within the state. Adds final year residents and fellows to the Georgia Board of Healthcare Workforce Cancellation Loan Program. This should increase rural health care providers in the area, attract more fellows and fellows down in residents in that area. Helps keeps final year residents and fellows in Georgia, especially underserved communities. This usually requires healthcare providers to commit to working in the underserved areas to at least 5 years to help repay the loan debt. This applies to, of course, PAs, physicians, dentists, and advanced RNs. Mr. Speaker, that's the gist of the bill. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Representative Park Cannon to your left is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield?
Yes.
I'm looking at lines 103 through 105 on page 5 of this measure.
Yes.
Was this provision already necessary for someone to be a citizen or a U.S. national, or is this new language?
From what I can tell, it's new language since it's underlined. That's based on what I've read, it's new language.
Okay, and further.
You said 103 to 105, correct?
Correct.
Yes, that should be new language.
Okay, so what's the legal reason or what's the metric for making this be only available to citizens at this time?
I'd have to guess on that one. The best thing I could say was to kind of gear it toward the citizens of the United States of America at this time.
The gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentlemen, yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? For what purpose is Representative Rice rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that Senate Bill 130 strengthens Georgia healthcare systems by incentivizing medical professionals to remain in our state and serve in communities that need them most?
The lady knows what she speaks because that's one of the goals of this House. Have all members now voted? All members voted. If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine? On the passage of Senate Bill 130, the yeas are 155, the nays are 7. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 99? Senate Bill 99.
Senate Bill 99 by Senator Robertson, the 29th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 16:1-3 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating definitions relative to crimes and offenses so as to provide for a definition of a law enforcement officer. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Matt Reeves is recognized to present the bill. Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Speaker Burns and members of the House. I present to you Senate Bill 99, the Law Enforcement Partners Act, and although this has a Senate bill designation, this has House language. The House Committee on Public Safety worked on this this year twice, once with the House bill. When the Senate bill passed 49-1, I talked to the Senate sponsor, and he agreed to work on our House version that the Georgia Sheriff's Association and the House Public Safety Committee had made some revisions to. So we had a second hearing, and the committee passed it out on a bipartisan basis. Georgia is one of 2 states, Nebraska being the other one, that lacks a jurisdictional basis for the federal authorities to work with our state authorities in cases of disaster or upon state request with a joint task force. That was an inadvertent repeal 5 years ago. This bill would fix it, and I really appreciate the House members in public safety working so hard on this on a bipartisan basis to present this bill, which I request your favorable support of, and I yield for any questions, Mr. Speaker. If there are no questions, I yield the well.
You have a couple of questions. Representative Reese to your left in the back. Representative Teddy Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Absolutely. From my colleague from Columbus who I've talked about this with a lot.
So you're going to take my inquiry from me then, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay. I do want to thank you for bringing this bill. And isn't it true that this bill will allow our local sheriff officers to have the necessary federal tools that they need to help them do their jobs within their jurisdiction?
Absolutely. I appreciate you speaking to the local law enforcement around Columbus last year and this year, and I'm glad it's here on the floor.
Representative Neal to your left, way back here is to your, yes, is recognized. Representative Neal, recognized for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, Representative Neal.
Is it not true that we strip this bill and put your bill into the House version, the better version, the preferred version, to make this a better bill?
Our House bill.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your work on it in public safety and for speaking to federal authorities to get in better shape.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Lim is recognized for a question to your right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
I had a question. Do federal law enforcement acting under the request of state or local law enforcement have the same immunities as the state law enforcement? The reason I ask is I'm concerned, as I'm sure you know, federal law enforcement are subject to Bivens, which are far narrower than Section 1983. And so if there's a differential in immunities, it's possible that federal law enforcement would act in a far less constrained manner than state law enforcement would in the exact same scenario. And I'm concerned that in that cases, either one would point to the other and either would avoid accountability or perhaps even worse, the state would hide under the guise of the federal law enforcement.
That is a good question, Representative Lim, and we got some questions answered in committee. Number one, federal law enforcement, they are prohibited nationally from moonlighting and doing anything in the private sector like sometimes people do in Georgia. So when they come to work with the state law enforcement, they are doing it under a specific request. Think New Orleans on January the 1st when that terrible tragedy happened, that kind of thing. If it happened here, we'd want everybody hands on deck in law enforcement, whether it's a state or federal issue going on. And so the issue of immunity, if they're doing their federal work on federal matters, the federal law would apply, and the state work, if they're doing it upon state request, that would be governed by analysis that we have here in Georgia, I believe. Mr. Speaker, if there are no further questions, I yield the well.
You have questions, but it's your choice.
I yield the well.
You were persuaded. Gentlemen, has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? Hearing none, the committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine? On the passage of Senate Bill 99, the yeas are 152, the nays are 11. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 298?
Senate Bill 298 by Senator Robertson of the 29th to be entitled Act to amend Code Section 5634 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to judgments and rulings deemed directly appealable, procedures for review, judgments, orders, or decisions not subject to direct appeal. This bill I have referred to the Committee on Judiciary. That committee recommends this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Rob Leverett is recognized to speak to Senate Bill 298.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we're kind of working on a theme here during this portion of the rules calendar because just like the previous bill, this is sort of a House bill language coming back to us in the Senate bill. Senate Bill 298, at least the House or the Rules Committee substitute that I believe you have in front of you, was House Bill 531 in essence. It provides that a local government or any type of governmental entity that it's sued, if they receive an adverse ruling regarding sovereign immunity, they have a right of direct appeal to that ruling, but they've got to exercise the appeal only one time and within 30 days. During committee, legislative immunity and then legislative privilege has been added to that, and there's also a route for direct appeal on a ruling relating to that, whether it's a criminal or civil case, and there is no limitation because, of course, that can come up multiple times within litigation during the course of discovery. So that is basically the bill, Mr. Speaker. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
The gentleman has a question. Representative Miller to your left, center aisle. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there any consideration to giving citizens the right to appeal an adverse ruling, direct appeal? In other words, if the trial court found that the municipality had some kind of immunity, that the citizen could direct appeal it?
My understanding is they're afforded a right of direct appeal already because that'd be a final order in the case.
Thank you.
So and this is the in the statute on direct appeals that are other than final orders.
So if it disposed of, just riddle me a second, if it disposed of one party to the suit, the municipality, but there were other parties who did not have the immunity, would the citizen be able to appeal even though the case was still going on?
And that I cannot answer to. If there's multiple parties, I'm not sure. They probably would have to get a certificate to appeal in that case.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
The gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 298. Thank you, and I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee's substitute? Hearing none, the committee's substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Hearing none, the Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 298? The yeas are 142. The nays are 23. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. If it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 241?
Senate Bill 241 by Senator Williams, the 25th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 18 to Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to funeral directors and establishments, embalmers, and crematories, so as to provide for the organic human reduction as means of disposing deceased human bodies. This bill I refer to the Committee on Regulated Industries. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chairman Powell is recognized to present Senate Bill 241. Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. Tonight I bring you Senate Bill 241. This is a bill by a former member of the House and one of the few distinguished senators who is a long-term member of the Funeral Caucus. Now, a lot of people name different bills, and I thought the appropriate name for this might be the Buddy DeLoach Organic Farming Bill. You know, one of the great things about being on Reg Industries is that we hear about all of it, but the funeral homes have had a lot of ways of disposing bodies, old-fashioned ways to bury them. Then you got cremation. Then a few years ago, I thought I'd about seen it all when they came up with this alkaline reduction about putting your carcass in a bucket of acid and all of that. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a new one, and it's called organic human reduction. And apparently this is the latest and the best on environmentally friendly disposal of human remains. I think you just basically, and I don't know, don't ask me the details of how you do it. I think they scratch a hole in the dirt and they put your carcass in it and cover it up so the cats can't drag it out. But what this bill does, ladies and gentlemen, it puts guardrails on this type of behavior, and it requires licensing and inspections. And this protects the families that choose to use this type of disposal. Now, it's almost dinner time, so I caution you, don't ask many questions because you might get some answers you don't want to hear before dinner. But if there's no questions, I'll sit down and yield the will.
Well, there's a question, and I'm a little bit concerned, but it's my job.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Donahue, to your left, is recognized for a question.
The gentleman yield?
I certainly do.
Is it not true if this bill passes, it will help your dirt turn into worm farm, and every worm farm will be productive?
Well, I have no idea that you're right, Your Honor, but I would say that once your body has been composted, then I would almost assure you can plant it in a tomato plant, and it might add a little bit more acidity to it.
Well, there's that one down. We have one more I'm going to allow because I want to have dinner, and I'm have to get over this for a few minutes. The caucus that knows a lot about this issue is represented by Representative Patty Stinson, and she's recognized at
Absolutely,
Funeral
my
Home
dear
Caucus. The lady's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I certainly do for the lovely lady.
So this question is really to help colleagues in the room that really don't quite understand our very important industry that really needs to be highlighted more in the state of Georgia. Is that not true that the funeral industry does need to be highlighted more in the state of Georgia, right?
Absolutely,
And the funeral directing needs to be a part of the list of high career demands. Is that not true as well?
Absolutely, I agree with the lady.
And is it not further true that we do need to separate the license of funeral directors and embalmers in the state of Georgia? Is that not true as well?
I would not. If the lady so states, I agree with her.
But back to this bill, Senate Bill 241. Is it not true that this bill is optional for families that wants to have this type of service, this cremation service, and it put guardrails in place to protect the families as well as the environment?
You're absolutely right. For those families that choose to use this type of procedure, I think that maybe in another year we'll be burying them like the Crows buried them out west. We'll be putting them on scaffolds and things like this, but it's just another way of disposing of the remains.
But isn't it not further true that depending on the funeral home that you use, you can probably get a really good deal by going this route as well, right? Is that not true?
Well, I'm not sure about that. They tell me that this is a pretty expensive way, but we know how environmentalists are. They'll pay a little bit more to get a little bit less.
But isn't it not further true that I have a deal for $3,900 that'll take care of everything? Is that not further true?
So, ma'am, so.
Thank you. Thank you. I will be supporting this bill, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I would certainly encourage members to vote for Senator Williams' bill, and let's move on to some other subjects.
That's why you're a wise man. That's all I was waiting on to get it cleared by the Funeral Home Caucus. The other one is not commenting, so we'll just move ahead. The gentleman's yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine? On the passage of Senate Bill 241, the yeas are 157, the nays are 4. We buried this one. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Just Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to members? Stay with me a little bit longer. Senate Bill 213. Mr. Clerk, will you read that caption?
Senate Bill 213 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others to be entitled Act to amend Part 2 of Article 15, Chapter 1 of Title 10, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Fair Business Practices Act of 1975, so as to ban commercial cheating services that target students and examinees seeking a professional license. This bill having referred to the Committee on Regulated Industries. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Representative Chuck Martin is recognized to present Senate Bill 213.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In all my years down here at the Capitol, I've never been dying to present a bill as much as I have after following Chairman Powell. Yeah, that didn't work either. No, I do have a simple but important measure for you this afternoon. There are companies out there that are taking advantage of our professional people and our students, advertising that they'll have exams taken for you. This is in college, our technical schools, but primarily where it's most damaging is in the professions, where these companies advertise that somebody will take your professional licensing test. And what we're seeking to do today is add that practice with a new code section, and then have that code section alluded to in the Fair Business Practices Act, so that the Attorney General would be the person that can prosecute that. Our idea here is that these companies that are preying on students and our professionals in the state of Georgia that then get a license because somebody else took the test and are at risk of losing that license if they're found out. So what our Senator Kirkpatrick has brought to us today, and what I bring to you in Senate Bill 213, is very simple. It holds those companies responsible for cheating, basically, to get a grade or a project done in school or a professional licensure test, and protect the people, the students, the professional licensees, and the public in the state of Georgia. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll answer any questions. The hour is late, and we'll move on.
You gentleman has no questions.
I yield the well. Ask for the favorable consideration of the House on Senate Bill 213.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine? On the passage of Senate Bill 213, the yeas are 155, the nays are 7. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 191?
Senate Bill 191 by Senator Still of the 48th and others be titled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 34 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to employment security so as to revise certain notice provisions relating to benefits and appeals. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Industry and Labor. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Representative Judd Howard is recognized to present Senate Bill 191. Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I bring you today Senate Bill 191. It's got the same language as earlier bill I brought to you this year's House Bill 569, which passed this House unanimously. This bill is a Department of Labor bill that modernizes the department. Currently, anyone that goes and makes a claim for an unemployment claim has to wait through the U.S. mail for that decision to be reached to them. This allows that claimant, if they choose to opt in, they can provide their email at the time that they make that claim, and so they'll receive that notification of that decision much sooner. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll open to any questions or yield the well.
The gentleman has no questions.
Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Minority report is waived. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none, the previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Hearing none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machine? Have all members voted? All members voted? If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine? On the passage of Senate Bill 191, the yeas are 146, the nays are 16. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Members, we have a little more business to attend to, and then we're going to be out of here. For what purposes, Representative Ballinger rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that SB 8 be moved back to the Rules Committee.
Mr. Clerk, would you read the caption?
Senate Bill 8 by Senator Kirkpatrick, and 32nd and others to be titled Act to amend Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to courts so as to provide for arrest warrant requirements when juvenile courts are acting as a court of inquiry.
On the lady's motion that SB 8, Senate Bill 8, be recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there objection? Hearing none, is so ordered. For what purposes Representative Cooper rise? Chair Lady Cooper.
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that we send back to the Rules Committee the substitute to Senate Bill 162.
Mr. Clerk, do you read the caption?
Senate Bill 162 by Senator Huffstetler, the 52nd to be entitled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 34, Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Georgia Composite Medical Board.
On the lady's motion that SB 162 be recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there objection? Hearing none, is so ordered. For what purposes Representative Allen Powell rise?
To make a motion?
State your motion.
I move that this House recommit Senate Bill 204 back to the Rules Committee.
Mr. Clerk, would you read the caption?
Senate Bill 204 by Senator Jones, the 22nd to be entitled Act to amend Code Section 17770.1 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to trial upon accusations in certain felony and misdemeanor cases.
On the gentleman's motion that Senate Bill 204 be recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there objection? Hearing none, is so ordered. For what purposes Chairman Bonner rise? Hit your button, please.
To make a motion,
State your motion.
I move that Senate Bill 293 be recommitted to rules.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 293, please?
Senate Bill 293 by Senator Anderson of the 24th to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 42, 85.1 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to license plates for certain veterans.
On the gentleman's motion that Senate Bill 293 be recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there objection? Hearing none, is so ordered. Okay, members, a little more procedural, very little, and then afternoon orders. Chair recognizes Representative Werkheiser, Chairman Werkheiser, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 123.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption? 123. House Bill 123.
House Bill 123 by Representative Werkheiser of the 157th to be titled an act to amend Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to criminal procedure so as to provide for pretrial proceedings in capital offense cases where the death penalty is sought when the accused has an intellectual disability.
Representative Werkheiser, Chairman Werkheiser, is recognized to explain the Senate substitute to House Bill 123. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate Judiciary made a couple of changes. I'm really fast. The defendant shall provide discovery at least 60 days because the pretrial motion was something new. So the defendant's got to give 60 days discovery, and then the prosecutor halfway through that period has to give 30 days of their discovery so that both sides have 30 days worth of discovery. There's a clarification code on a couple of links. And then since we took away the death penalty, we added life without the possibility of parole, and then changed the effective date to upon the signature of the governor. And that was it. And I appreciate all of y'all's support on this. And I'll stand for any questions.
Gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, and I appreciate your support and for everything y'all have done. Thank you.
Gentlemen, yield to the will. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 123, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, Mr. Clerk, will you lock the machine? On the gentleman's motion, the yeas are 150, the nays are 3, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 123. Congratulations, Chairman Workhouse. I know you worked hard on that one. For what purpose does Representative Anderson rise? You need to hit your button.
To make a motion?
State your motion.
I move that this House temporarily suspend the rules so a resolution can be read and assigned to committee.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to the resolution?
Unnumbered House Resolution by Representative Anderson of the 10th of creating a House Study Committee on Election Procedures.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended so a resolution can be read for the first time and assigned to committee. Is there objection? Rules. For what purpose does Representative Saines rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that the rules be temporarily suspended so that a bill may be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Unnumbered House Resolution by Representative Saints of the 180th honoring the life of Mrs. Rachel Hodge and dedicating an intersection in her memory.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended so a resolution can be read for the first time and assigned to committee. Is there objection? Transportation. For what purpose does Representative Clark rise?
Motion.
State your motion.
I move that the rules be temporarily suspended so that a bill may be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Clark of the 100th and others to be entitled an act to authorize the governing authority of Hall County to levy an excise tax.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended so a bill can be read for the first time and assigned to committee. Is there objection? Intergovernmental coordination. For what purpose does Chairman Blackman rise? Mash your button.
Make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that resolution be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Unnumbered House Resolution by Representative Blackman of the 146th creating a House Study Committee on reducing and prioritizing mandates for public school administration.
On the gentleman's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended so a resolution can be read for the first time and assigned to committee. Is there objection? Education. Okay, members, here's our posture. We have some afternoon orders. You're going to have about a minute, a little over. But there's three of our afternoon orders that we need to stand for. I'm going to call them first. I'm going to ask the members to stand and give the members in the well your attention. Members stand and give the members in the well your attention. Representative Al Williams, Representative Buddy DeLoach are recognized. And whom else would you like to have with you, Representative Williams?
Representative Hitchens, members of the Chatham delegation, these two colonels, Colonel Prince, Colonel Griffin, and any veterans.
Veterans, retired military.
Veterans, retired military. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with deep regret this morning, before the start of the session, I got a call from the garrison commander at Fort Stewart informing me that they had recovered the bodies of three of the four missing military people. The amazing part about it is they were in a 65-ton technical truck and fell into a peat bog, which they really literally covered the entire vehicle, could not be found. When it was found, special equipment had to be brought in. General Norrie also released a statement that certainly the hearts of all the members of the third goes out to those. It is very doubtful that the fourth person will be found alive, but certainly all of our communities around Hinesville, Liberty County, and Savannah, and all of our veterans, along with you, we certainly extend our heartfelt condolences to the family, and we ask that we give a moment of silence for the loss of these heroes. Amen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Amen. Thank you, Representative Williams. Members, if you'll continue standing, I just want to say our heartfelt condolences to those families, Representative Williams, but also to their fellow servicemen that have worked so diligently to recover those other servicemen there that have been lost. So our condolences to all concerned. Representative McClain, give the gentleman your attention and will. Representative McClain.
Thank
friends,
you, Mr. Speaker. If I can get the Gwinnett delegation with me too.
Gwinnett delegation.
Yes, because last Thursday was, it took a lot of us. Last Thursday, I got home in the district, and it's kind of like, this is a half a mile from my house. I tell y'all earlier, I have what you call a 6,000 square foot district. That is a picture of Indy Bullock, the young 5-year-old that was missing on Thursday, and they found him Friday. And I'd like to thank the community, the teachers, Hall County, the Gwinnett Police, County Sheriff. I mean, everybody just got all together trying to find this young man, and it's heartening because you think he's nonverbal, he was autistic, and they found him the day after on that Friday. So we can just give a moment of silence for the family because, again, as young people like that, that means a lot. So if you can just give us a moment of silence, I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
Thank you, Representative. It's hard to lose a child. Our condolences go to that family. Chairman Crow and Representative McDonald are recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, as you may remember, on Friday I came and spoke to you about the 5-year-old daughter of Sergeant Royce Zah Navy, who was in the hospital battling an illness and sepsis. Unfortunately, shortly after we left that afternoon, Friday evening, she passed away. And so I just come to ask you to continue to keep Sergeant Royce Zah and his family in your thoughts and in your prayers, and to say an extra prayer for 5-year-old Navy. And if you would observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Amen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, colleagues. You may be seated. Another tragic situation. Our condolences go out to the family. Representative Lim is recognized for an afternoon order. Representative Lim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I timed this to a minute. So I wanted to recognize the Title I parent centers in the 10 schools of the Meadow Creek cluster in my district, the staff at whom I've honored with House Resolution 534. Between this year and last, you've seen me welcome students from actually the majority of these schools here for morning orders. So if it's not clear, I love my schools, but I particularly wanted to single out the parent instructional coordinators and liaisons. They are the glue of our communities and schools approach in a cluster that represents the plurality of Title I schools in the Gwinnett County Public School systems. I just wanted to read out their names: Johan Timuron, Sandy Rebus, Lucy Torp, Kenny Venegas, Amanda Scott, Diana Rubio, Kyla Ramsey, Ivan Cerda, Michael Doyne, Yvonne Kroll, Judy Ruiz, Natalie Benavides, Martha Alanis, Anna Price, Maria Fernandez, Muriel Narinda, Judy Pena Perez, and Marisol Roselle. I'm so grateful to you all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Representative Jackson just informed me that if y'all remember one of our colleagues, Representative Craig Gordon, keep that family in your prayers. Craig just lost his dad. So thank you, Representative Jackson. Prayers for that family, condolences. Craig Goodman did a fine job of representing Savannah and Chatham County. Chairman Jaspers recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have in my hands a very important document, if you're interested, where we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on freight logistics spending. It's a very detailed report. It's the result of House Bill 617 that we passed last year that adds transparency to how we spend dollars in freight logistics. My fine intern, Noah Rainwater, over there has these for you if you're interested in one of these. I didn't give everybody one. But also, Noah has this antique thing called a map. And, we thought that was pretty, we got some from Josh Waller at GDOT the other day, and we thought we'd have Noah pass those out. Also, transportation, we meet tomorrow at 1 in 506. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is that your announcement as well? Transportation at 1 tomorrow. Yes. Nothing like getting it all done at once. Representative Seaball. Representative Devin Seaball is recognized for an afternoon order. Representative Willis, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of this esteemed body. I rise today to recognize a true treasure in the heart of my district, a crown jewel of Georgia's cultural landscape, the Earl and Rachel Smith Strand Theater in Marietta, as it celebrates its 90th birthday. Since opening its doors in 1935, the Strand has stood as a place where generations of Georgians have laughed, cried, and gathered for music, film, and storytelling. It survived the Great Depression, stood through decades of change, and thanks to a passionate community effort, was brought back to life with a stunning renovation in 2009. Today, it's not just a theater, it's a symbol of what happens when a community rallies around the arts, a symbol of preservation, of pride, and of purpose. Whether it's a local high school production, a classic movie night, or a sold-out concert, the Strand brings people to the Marietta Square, fills restaurants, supports small businesses, and reminds us why the arts matter. Please join me in honoring the Earl and Rachel Smith Strand Theater for its 90 years of cultural excellence and in recognizing all those who have worked so hard to keep the lights on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the well.
Community treasure. Hope it lasts for another 90 or so years. Representative Willis, recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today on the last day of Women's History Month to honor Mayor Emeritus of Atlanta, Shirley Clark Franklin. Scripture states that with humility comes wisdom. She is known for being bold, authentic, intellectual, brave, and compassionate, and that she is. She was elected in 2001 as the first female mayor of Atlanta and the first black woman to lead a major city in the South. She was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, surrounded by civil activism, and at an early age, her father was a judge, her mother an educator, both of whom influenced her trajectory of becoming a staple in American politics. She's a second-generation Howard University graduate, an avid arts lover, and she married David Franklin. He was an esteemed entertainment attorney and political strategist. Fun fact, they met while she was a student at Howard. He was in law school. He said he wanted to represent musicians. She said, please come meet my classmates, Donnie Hathaway and Roberta Flack, who became his first clients. Last week, Mayor Franklin was honored with the street 3 blocks from here in a park named in her honor, and she deserves it. You should know that she despises praise and accolades, so this was no small feat. She sent me a message thanking me for being there and speaking on her special day. I said, for you? Are you kidding? I'd run a marathon barefoot to show up for you. Thank you for being a safe space in my childhood. Thank you for being an inspiration to women in leadership. Thank you for being exactly who you say you are all the time. And in the spirit of being the music lover she is, I leave you with this Donnie Hathaway quote. Soul is about authenticity and feeling, and I want to give people the real thing. Thank you, Shirley Franklin, for giving Atlanta, Georgia, the real thing. We acknowledge you today as a dynamic and courageous leader. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to former Mayor Franklin on the nice honor of having those spaces named in her honor. Representative Alexander. Representative Kim Alexander recognized for an afternoon order. Give the lady your attention, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise today to speak on behalf of our friend and fellow member, Representative Sylvia Wafer Baker of District 64 in Douglas County, sitting right back there. Representative Baker was recently involved in a car accident just outside the Capitol where she was rear-ended by a MARTA bus. She is suffering with a lot of pain. However, she's doing her best to keep up with her legislative work. She's currently under doctor's order to rest and recover. Rep. Baker asked me to thank all of you for your kindness and to let you know that while she won't be returning for the remainder of the session, right now she is focused on healing and continuing to serve in every way she can from afar. Please keep Representative Baker in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the well.
Thank you for reminding us. Our colleague is certainly not doing well, so let's keep her in our thoughts and our prayers and let her know we miss her. If you're watching, we do miss you, and we hope you'll be back soon, but if not, we'll see you down the road a little bit further. That completes our afternoon orders. Mr. Clerk, are you ready? I think we have some privileged resolutions, so will you read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions? Mr. Clerk.
Honoring the life and memory of Clarence Ed Barker. Honoring and commending the life, leadership, and legacy of Wyatt Thomas Johnson, Jr. Commending Hope Atlanta on 125 years of service to Metro Atlanta. Recognizing Speak Life Cancer Care Ministry. Commending Aretha Sharice Hopkins. Recognizing, commending Michaela Arcia. Recognizing, commending Pamela Brown. Congratulating the Georgia Pharmacy Association upon its 150th anniversary. Recognizing, commending Ralph Evans upon his induction in the Georgia Agricultural Hall of Fame. Honoring the life, work, and contributions of Nina Packer. Recognizing, commending Joyce Carter Stevens. Recognizing, commending Andre Anthony Cross Jr., recognizing, commending A.J. Calloway, honoring Michelle Taylor Willis, honoring the life and work and contributions of attorney Gerald A. Griggs, honoring the life, work, and contributions of Patrick Mohammed. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? Hearing none, the resolutions are adopted. We do have some announcements, but first, I'm going to encourage you all, when you go to bed tonight, before you go to bed, to call Representative Montahan, because he had a birthday today. Today is his birthday, so call him and roust him up in case he's going to bed early or anything. I don't see him back there. So happy birthday to Representative Martin Montahan today. So I know Representative Gullett, you can call him late and wake him up. Representative Martin Montahan. We have some announcements. Chairman Hawkins is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Health will meet tomorrow at 1:30 in CAP 403.
Representative Gabe Okoye is recognized for an announcement. Then Representative Gamble, you will be next. Representative Okoye.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to remind those of you that have signed up for the Nigerian trip, you will be getting an email soon giving you more details about the trip. And also those of you who haven't signed up, if you want to sign up, just give me your email address and your phone number and you'll be signed up. The date remains July 18th through the 29th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Gamble, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Speaker. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. in Capitol 132, the fellowship will meet for the final time of the year. If you hadn't made it yet, you need to be there. This is your last opportunity for the 2025 session. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Chokas, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Small Business Development Committee will be meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., 506, and we'll be looking at organized retail theft. Get an update on that. 506 tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Small Business. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Todd Jones, recognized for an announcement.
Good afternoon. TII will have a meeting tomorrow in CLOB 406. We will be taking up a drone bill. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Chairman Dickey. Wait a minute. Excuse me, Chairman Dickey.
My apologies, 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Chairman Dickey, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Agriculture Consumer Affairs will have their final meeting tomorrow at 9, and CLOB will be hearing the bill. Thank you.
Chairman Gunther, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judiciary Committee will meet tomorrow at 2:30 and 1:32. We have a few bills that are hearing only.
That completes our announcements. But I'll just make sure that everyone remembers that tomorrow is a committee work day. So if you see some of your colleagues that had business a little bit early this afternoon and left us before they heard all those announcements, we need to be in our committee meetings. So I encourage you all to finish out committee work day on Tuesday. What's the day? I'm lost. What's the day? Today's Monday. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Yes. Tomorrow is Tuesday. It's a committee work day, so I encourage all of our members to attend their committee meetings. You ready, Mr. Majority Leader? Majority Leader is recognized for a motion.
May not be the motion I want to make, but I'm ready, Mr. Speaker.
You're getting closer, though.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. On the motion of the Majority Leader, this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, April, wow, is that right, the 2nd? Wow, time flies, 2025. Before I say this last part, I want to thank you, all of you members, for being here and your attention today, tending to the people's business. A good day in the House. Thank y'all. All those in favor of the Majority Leader's motion will say aye. All those opposed, no. Some of us are going home. The ayes have it. Great day, y'all. Thank you for your work.